Hello and welcome back to Rage Gaming and more Path of Exile 2. Today I want to talk to you about a little straightforward mapping strategy, a pretty well-known concept, setting up a load of towers around what you're actually doing so that you're able to maximize the amount of events and the passives that are actually on the Waystone, how you're juicing the Waystone, but also important tips to think about in terms of what would be the ideal map for most anything, like a big open map such as Savannah, or how to trick it into thinking you've attempted the map when I haven't died on that map, which essentially culls that map from the potential of getting, say, a breach when I put a breach tablet into this tower right next to it. Maps that are currently completed or attempted, these maps cannot have tablet modifiers actually affect them, which means you're able to set up your mapping to specifically put the mods that you want on the right map. Another top tier map, Rust Ball. I've got Breach, I've got Ritual. Having Delirium here would be amazing. And juicing this up as much as possible, it's just a peak thing to look for. So let's explain the process of how to really maximize what we're doing with the general juicing your mapping and towers concept, just with some new tips that I've learned over like the last few days. Using this method, you will achieve ridiculous things like this, where Josh was doing it the other day and got the fated multiple mods on one map sort of ideal scenario. Right, so let's do a live example of what I'm talking about. Right now, I'm about to set things up. I've just cleared these 4 towers and they're ready to have the tablets put into them. But we don't want to just put them in because that'll hit random maps around here. There are 2 things that define when a map will be hit by the modifiers you put in via a tablet. Whether it can have modifiers or not. So this could, because, you know, it's not complete. But this map here, the Maya, as a completed map, cannot have the modifiers from the tablet hit it. So if we were to say, put a breach tablet into this map, into this tower, sorry, it would spawn a load of breaches around there. But these green ones that are already complete cannot be tagged by those. So using that, we can cull the things we don't want. Maps that are going to be inefficient for this type of thing. Now, ideally, we want a stack of Breach, Delirium, and Ritual on top of each other, and we want those to be irradiated like this map to increase the value because they'll be higher level, so potential drops will be better. So an empty map like Fortress here that has nothing on it, I could put something like a Breach on this, but I'd rather stack it up. So this has Breach and Excavation on it. I'd rather this become irradiated. I'd rather this also have Ritual to have like 4 mods on one map rather than 1 mod on one map. The more you stack it up, the more potency you get. The other end of this is obviously to do with the biomes. For example, this map is a Savannah, and this is amazing because it's a nice open map. It's very hard to get lost on this map. It's hard to get stuck anywhere, have to backtrack. If you're doing Breach on this map, it's a dream because you're pretty much just able to spread out, and as soon as you reach the point where the breach is spreading too slowly for mob density, you just turn left or right, there'll be loads of mobs in any direction, continuing the breach as long as possible. So open maps like Savannah, absolute goal to get as many mods on this as we can. What kind of maps are going to be the best for this kind of thing, Breach and otherwise? That is going to be Savannah, like I said, but there's also Steppe, which is just basically a big open forest with not much in the way of obstacles. There's Willow, which is again another forest environment, not a lot of obstacles, not a lot of backtracking at all. There's Rust Ball, which is basically just this big red desert area, which again doesn't have much obstacles, so there's not much room for backtracking or, you know, corridors. And lastly, Creek is another fantastically rated one, which is essentially one of those open maps. It's a forest. If you're interested in tracking this and just having a quick way to see what might be a good map to set up or one that maybe is bad and you might want to avoid, check out this spreadsheet. As you can see, it lists all the different types of maps and generally rates them. 4 being the highest number and then represented in green, and 1 being the worst, represented in red. Obviously those red and more like orange and yellow maps you try to avoid, and then just straight greens, those would be the most valuable ones to do. There's also local information if you want to mess with your atlas tree a little bit to enhance the value of that. If you're willing to turn on local knowledge here and there, specifically when you're doing swamp and water biomes, for the massive increase to currency drops. But if you're just looking for like the best mapping or breach farming, there is a tab for that here as well with those maps that I just listed. So I want to credit the creators of this awesome resource, Mustia, Camou, and of course Aeroplane. It's something I've got bookmarked, so I do refer to it when I need to. If you want to have a look at the spreadsheet though, I'll be asking Josh to put it in the description. So you're hoping for these kind of open field maps, but we don't have to hope for these. We can eliminate the maps that we don't want to hit. So if I wanted to guarantee that this tower here with breach hit this map, I would just need to complete this map, this map, this map, this map, this map, this map, this map. Basically, every map that's in range except for this, and it would guarantee that we hit this savannah. But obviously, that's a bit extreme. There's plenty of maps that are worth doing, that aren't optimal, but are worth doing, not terrible. So your method then is to cull the things you don't want, be they bad map or bad setup, by completing them. But there's another way you can actually cull the potential rolls from a tower, and that is a blue map you've attempted and failed. As you can see, this backwash, I failed it because I died on it. I got randomly one shot. A attempted map no longer has any modifiers on it, so it could not roll, say, a breach if I put the breach tower here. So yes, technically you could go into a map and then die really quickly, and that would be another way to cull that map, but significantly faster than having to clear out the whole map, obviously. The problem with that concept is obviously XP. Like, I'm almost leveling up, so if I die, I'm going to just give up a lot of XP. That then would mean you could do this when you're newly leveled, so that you're not giving up any XP because you can't de-level. So to do a map attempted without killing yourself on that map, instead what you can do is just get like a really low tier, literally a tier 1 Waystone, and then put that into the map. As you can see, it'll do the map, and then I press traverse and then it loads it up. The portal's open and I don't even need to go in. All I now need to do is pick a different map and put in another Waystone into that and activate that by traversing. That opens up the new portals. And then as we go back to look at the first map, you can see that it is now a map that was attempted. As if I died on it, that map no longer can get modifiers. So we have culled it from the potential pool. Now all that really remains is for me to spend some time culling the maps that I don't want to get hit to maximize the amount of breaches, irradiations, and then under that, ritual and delirium where possible. Right, so I'm back now, having done a little bit of progressing and culling of certain maps. At this point, I'm ready to set everything up, for the purpose of this video at least. Ideally, what you would do if you're really doing this as hard as you can is not just do like 4 towers, but as many as you physically can within range. So it would be potentially worth it for me to come over here and do these 2, find my way all around here so that I could reach these towers here that would also just barely reach these maps. If you're really going hard, that's what you really should be doing. But obviously I'm making a video, I want to show you the purpose of it. So I've got 1 tower set up already. We got these 3 other towers that I want to do. So we want to get as many breach as we can around this, and we want those to be stacked on other modifiers like boss and especially irradiation, but I want them to compound as much as possible. So these maps that already have breach on them, I'm not going to be able to add breach to it, right? So let's say I chose this tower, it could accidentally put a breach here and over here where I'm not going to be able to do it right now. But because I've culled around here already, it's much more likely to hit this that doesn't have breach on it. They are ready to go, as well as this that has corruption, this has irradiation, this with, the irradiation. So at very least, I'm going to put 1 breach in here, but I want to make sure that I maximize the value of the tablet. We can only modify it twice, and there's a bit of RNG here. I've only got 2 here. You want the highest maps in range number you can get. And we're looking for specific types of affixes. Neither of these are that impactful for the drop, sadly. That's a pretty good one. Rarity of the items you find. The map having a % chance to contain 3 additional breaches. That's a specific one to breach tablets and is a phenomenal one. But the thing you care about the most is rarity and quantity. Quantity of drops being the most valuable thing. Rarity of items being under that. And then the specific breach one if it is a breach tablet. So let's start with this one and put the breach waystones in here. And with that, we're going to influence that and spread a load of breach around. Perfect. It got towards the center where these are going to overlap a lot more. Then I'm going to work my way over here where there's less breaches and actually get more breaches onto those as well. So we're going to spread those out nicely onto some maps of value. And obviously it's going to hit up here when I get over here, and then I'm going to stack these towers up later. On this last one, let's get some irradiation. 10 maps in range or 8. Well, this 8 one does have some better modifiers, but this will reach 10 maps. Well, for the sake of modifiers taking priority and it being 8 versus 10, I'll go for the 8 and spread some irradiation around as well. So just like that, we've got lots of maps with double and triple modifiers on them. But importantly, they have lots of passive increases. The number of rare monsters, the rarity of the items, and the quantity of what we're finding as well. It's what we care about. But of course, we have the other 2 options as usual. Firstly, we have the Waystone, which you can get up to 6 modifiers on. The greatest or smoothest way to do that will be to alch it to put it straight to 4. When you press Alt, you can check what's on it, right? So we have prefixes and suffixes. Suffixes are basically, these are going to be things you're dealing with that are bad, like dealing with energy shield on enemies and stuff like that. Whereas prefixes are basically the positives. So this has 3 negatives and only 1 positive. So I know if I've got the exalts to spare, every exalt I give to this is going to add a positive modifier. So we're looking for quantity and rarity most of all. We didn't get what we were perfectly looking for, but number of rare monsters and magic monsters and packs isn't bad. To go further, we can corrupt this and maybe make it a tier 16. To corrupt a Waystone and its affixes, you're basically re-rolling the numbers and maybe even changing what the affixes are even there, which could mean, like in this case, you're adding more negatives. But there are, big number potentials here too. Obviously, the thing we care most about is changing this from a tier 15 to a tier 16, and that can happen when you corrupt it. So if you've got lots of tier 15s and you're not too worried about re-rolling into a harder modifier, getting that fated tier 16 for a boss map that's also got a breach, that's also on a great map with great, percent modifiers on it, that is obviously like a goal. But if you have a Waystone that's tier 15 with some absolutely brilliant affixes on it, quantity and rarity, and you don't want to risk losing those by Val-orbing it, that's perfectly reasonable. So to increase the value of this map in a positive way, we'll use some distilled emotions. Guilt will add pack size, Ire will add magic monsters, what we care more about is Greed for increased rarity, and Paranoia for increased number of rare monsters, which is obviously really, really good. It depends what you're willing to do, but you increase the delirious state, the difficulty of it, but you get that increased rarity chance. So we've got increased quantity and rarity, which is just perfect. Then I've added more rarity to the items we'll find using distilled emotions. We've stacked up the actual modifiers by using the towers, and on these maps we obviously have these compounding modifiers as well. What we want to run then is breach, irradiated and corrupted, and then everything else we can get on it on top of that on a good map. So we kind of got that here with Savannah. It's got a boss, it's irradiated, and it's got a breach. Stacking up as many of these as we can, that's the highest value that we could find. But the fact that it's on Savannah, which is a really great map to run, you couldn't ask for better than that. And what's nice about this map too is the fact that because I put some distilled emotions into the Waystone, we're going to get delirious monsters. And you could always get one of the bosses. In fact, as you can see here, you can get both of them on the same map. So extra loot, like extra rares on the map, is an incredibly valuable thing. To recap and give you a conclusion on this though, what you're looking to do is stack as many towers as you can in an area where you're going to do a bunch of maps. But before you activate those towers by putting a tablet of any kind into them, you want to carefully path to the towers, going through the maps that have bad modifiers or are just a biome or a map that you don't want to do, and then also specifically cull any maps that are going to be bad to run, like the Val factories, or anywhere that's going to have a lot of backtracking. The augury is just really annoying with the levers, that kind of thing. Saving open maps that are more like open fields or woods, so that they're much more likely to actually be hit by the modifiers you're putting in via the tablet in the towers. You stack this up as much as you can because ultimately you want to stack as much as you can into a map. The highest rarity, the highest quantity, and then the amount of, say, magic and rares and modifiers on those rares, that's great too. It's like running 10 maps with a little bit of juicing on them versus running 5 maps with a lot of juicing of them. Those maps with significantly more investment into them will reward way more drops, way more currency, and maybe the big wins like the perfect jeweler's orb that I got by doing this technique in these live recordings. Obviously, it's only going to get better and better if you beat the pinnacle bosses and improve the actual trees via the Atlas skill tree. But you're not going to get those breach splinters, for example, if you don't run breach. It only gets more and more valuable after you beat those pinnacle bosses though. I hope from this video you learned a couple of new things, and if you guys have any more tips to add, let us know in the comments. But for now, I've been Hollow, you've been you, thanks for watching, we'll see you next time.
Josh, Cotton, and Hollow with the videos, dropping the humor like a hammer on your tippy toes, bringing entertainment on a daily arrangement to take our insanity and turn it into entertainment. Yes, I said entertainment twice, to reiterate that it is nice to look into your faces on a mostly daily basis when you let us in your homes to make the whole world a stage. Goodbye.